I'd like to call this meeting of the Monticello City Council to order. Would you please rise and join with me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing as Rodney Burris leads us in prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Father, for bringing us together again for another meeting. We thank you that we have bringing on new people. We ask you to bless their first night with us and bless their terms. We praise you and glorify your name. Amen?
Amen.
Oh, please, Jill.
Ms. Muse? Mr. Woodham?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Ms. Vogt? Here. Mr. Brock?
Here.
Mr. Burris?
Here.
Mr. Kuhn?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public participation. In-person participation. This is an opportunity for the public to provide public comment to the presiding officer. Those wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to commencement of the meeting and must address the council from the seat and table provided. The public comments must comply with ordinance 2014-02 and be limited to 5 minutes or less. Is there anyone tonight, Rob?
Go on, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Remote participation. This is an opportunity for the public to provide public comment to the presiding officer. The public comments must comply with ordinance 2014-02 and be limited to 5 minutes or less. At this time, members of the public are able to attend public meetings by web conference and to submit public comment by email, voicemail, or through web conference. Anyone more? No, sir? I think that's what she said. Okay, moving on to item 3, consent agenda, approval of documents, excuse me, action items is listed. Claims report. Claims dated April 25th, 2023 through May 8th, 2023. Meeting minutes, City Council meeting minutes, April 14, 2023. Permit report, April 2023. Police report, April 2023. Budget report, March 2023. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions to the city staff about anything on this? Hearing or seeing none, may I have a roll call, please, Jill?
Mr. Woodham?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I do not have a report this evening. We'll move down to item 6 on your agenda, drawing lots to determine terms for Ward 2 and Ward 4 alderpersons. Dan Boland, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The city received the results of the 2020 census and discussed redistricting the city's wards at multiple city council meetings, including on November 8th, 2021, April 11th, 2022. On May 23rd, 2022, the city council adopted an ordinance redistricting the city's wards. Under the new ward map, there were 2 or more alderpersons with terms of office not expiring and residing in the same ward. That's in Ward 1 and Ward 3. Therefore, as required by the Illinois Municipal Code, you all might recall that the city clerk drew lots on May 23rd to determine that Alderperson Kuhn will be the holdover alderperson for Ward 1, and Alderperson Vogt will be the alderperson at large, and Alderperson Brock will be the holdover alderperson for Ward 3, and Alderperson Burris will serve as alderperson at large. The new ward map also provided that no alderpersons with unexpired terms resided in Ward 2 and Ward 4. So the municipal code required 2 alderpersons to be elected and draw lots to determine which alderpersons in each ward would hold office for a 4-year term and a 2-year term. As a result, 2 Ward 2 candidates and 2 Ward 4 candidates circulated nominating petitions to the voters seeking a full term because their term length would later be determined by lot. Fortunately, the ballot certification filed by the local election official on January 24th, 2023 did not reflect these extraordinary requirements. mistakenly indicating that the number to be voted for is 1, and that the term of office is 4 years for the Ward 2 and Ward 4 offices. The local election official, that's the city clerk, prepared an amended ballot certification immediately after discovering these errors on March 30th, 2023, where 2 alderpersons shall be elected. The amended certification stated the number to be voted on for each office is not more than 2. The amended certification also indicated that the term of office is full term. The length of each full term will be determined by lottery as provided by law. On April 5th, the Pike County State's Attorney advised us that the county clerk was unable to change the ballot so close to the election. And on April 24th, the city clerk received the county clerk's abstract of votes, which only certified 1 Ward 2 candidate and 1 Ward 4 candidate as elected. But the Illinois Municipal Code provides that whenever a person has been elected to office, the mayor shall issue a certificate of election under the corporate seal to the municipal clerk. On May 1st, the mayor reviewed the abstract of results and the amended ballot certification and certified the number of candidates elected as required by law: 2 Ward 2 candidates and 2 Ward 4 candidates. And on May 2nd, we shared the certificates with the alderpersons elect and along with the suggested lottery procedure to determine terms for Ward 2 and Ward 4 alderpersons. As a result, we recommend that the alderpersons elect for the Ward 2 and Ward 4 determine their terms by lot as provided by law. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I want to address a few things here. I believe that this error was not by the county election, if this was an error by the city. That's correct, that the city provided the wrong ballot.
I think that's correct.
Okay, so to me, I just want to clarify just from the public that this was not an error by the county clerk. This was an error by the city. And so I guess my question is, if I'm a voter and I see vote for 1, and that was the understanding, and I get the early, I would feel a little cheated that I voted thinking that I only needed to vote for 1 when we needed to vote for 2. And so I don't know what the legal, I mean, you've gone through all the legal things that need to happen. To me, the right thing would have been to have the people that are certified by the county as the winner, and they get the 4-year term, which is what the voters voted on, and have the other ones appointed by the mayor, which is what we've done in the past. So I guess first of all, could you talk about what the legality is on that? Because I don't think this is the right way. This may be what we have to do, but if I'm a voter, I feel like I feel cheated because I went to the polls thinking this is what I was voted on.
Dan, you want to?
Sure. I understand and appreciate the alderperson's view. That is a reasonable policy view, but what the law says is that when the city adopted this map, that 2 alderpersons were to be elected and their terms of office were determined by law. The candidates circulated nominating petitions to the voters. What about those voters who signed nominating petitions in support of these candidates seeking a full term that would be determined by law? And the way there was a mistake on the ballot certification. There's no deadline under the law to correct that kind of mistake. Once the clerk discovered it, she was required to file an amended ballot certification. She did, and to certify the results based on the mistaken ballot certification, when we know that the law requires 2 candidates to be certified as elected. That's what was the compounding that mistake. We're just directing the city to do what the law requires.
But the letter came on March the 30th, and even though that the election day, well, first of all, that's awfully close to the election day, but really the election starts on February 23rd, which is when early voting starts, and that's when mail-in ballots can start to be sent in. So really the letter that was sent in the middle of the election process. So there was, it would have not been right, albeit the fact that you were close to the election date, to amend that ballot.
Mike, I understand what you're saying, but legally, it really doesn't make any difference. We can do it the legal way, which is to take the attorney's advice and go by what the state
Right.
statutes say, or we can do it your way and not be in compliance with the law.
I'm not saying this is my way. This is not my way.
This is what you suggested. I'm not saying it's your way, but you've brought the issue up, so I want to address it that way.
Okay.
It's do it the legal way or do it illegally, and I prefer to be legal.
Okay, I mean, I think this is where we're at, right? But I think that beyond the fact that this mistake was made by the city, not by the county, I think at some point, the only reason that I knew about it, because I'm not in this ward, is that I had conversations with other residents who voted and with the county clerk's office. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known it. There was no communication from the city, from the mayor, that this had happened. There should have been something that was sent out either through social media or through some correspondence to say, hey, this error has occurred, just so, with the people that goes to the polls on April the 3rd knew that this had happened. And this is the other part of the failure in my mind, is the fact that it was a lack of communication from the city officials that this had happened. And with the council, I got this email on May the 2nd, and I was surprised this wasn't discussed by the council, either in open session or closed session. There was no information from the city that this had occurred.
I have no defense for that other than to say, in all the years that I've sat as mayor, we've never sat and discussed election results with the city council. We've never sent out notification about who was elected or who was not elected. We've always just done what we need to do to make sure that whoever
On the ballot.
whoever was elected is seated. And that's exactly what we're doing. There is absolutely no difference right now, the way it turned out with the ballot being incorrect than it would have been if the ballot had not been incorrect. The same persons would have been elected and there would be nothing to yammer about. Okay?
I just wanted to clarify.
I appreciate that, but I think you've clarified enough. Okay? Any other comments, questions from the council? Okay, let's get lots drawn. Right?
Yes.
Are you explaining the procedure? Or are you explaining the procedure?
Sure, I can. This is the procedure that we circulated to the alderpersons elect, and I didn't hear anything back from them. I presume that they're all fine with it. It's adapting the same simultaneous ballot lottery procedure that the clerk uses to order ballots, applying to this. The candidates' names are going to be listed alphabetically and numbered 1 and 2. There's a number 1 and 2 placed in the container. The clerk is going to draw, have one drawing to break all the ties. The one, excuse me, I don't refer to my notes. If the one is drawn, the candidates whose names are numbered 1 would receive the 4-year term, and the other would receive the 2-year term. If the number 2 is drawn, the candidates with number 2 receive the 4-year term, and the candidates.
Okay, now if I'm understanding this correctly, in Ward 2, the candidates would be, number 1 would be Eric
Yeah, Ward 2, number 1 would be Broderick.
Yeah.
These, I hope I'm saying his names correctly, please forgive me. And Ward 4, number 1 would be Piercy, and number 2 would be Reed.
Thank you. Did you want to take the bucket there and show that we have 1, 1 and 1, 2? 2. Back up.
You ready for me to draw?
Yes.
This is a number 2.
So Mr. Denise would have the 4-year term. Eric, you'll have a 2-year term. Tom, you have a 4-year term, and Tom Piercy has a 2-year term. Okay? Any comments, questions? Are we done with that now? Can we have the swearing in of newly elected officials, city council members? Lively, Broadwick, Denton, Denise, Woodham, Piercy, and Reed need to be sworn in by the city clerk. So would you come up here in front of the table? I finally figured out who you were. I've seen him before.
This is to read along if you'd like, but I will be asking you to repeat after me. John, there you're right in front of me. Eric. Ryan. And Tom. All right.
You're doing these one at a time, all at once.
We're going to do them all at once.
Okay.
So I will say the first line and then repeat after me, okay? Raise your right hand if you would like. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Alderman Ward
of the office of Alderman Ward 2
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, come up and sign this. Have a pen.
There you go.
And I'll sign here after. Thank you. And then, John, you are going right over there next to me.
You out?
Where Ian is, or next.
Yes, I will be.
Yeah, we'll be- and then he's next to you, correct? Yeah.
Ian, thank you so much.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, it's my pleasure.
And then, Tom, you know where you're going. Eric, you are over next between Mike and Wendell.
Oh, I'm next to Wendy.
So wait, Jim.
I know I will. Isn't it funny?
Yes, sir.
Good job.
Did he stand?
Hey, congratulations.
I'm sure I'll see you a lot. My taxes.
Oh, come see me anytime, man.
Here, heck, yeah, I'll see you there.
Someone where you.
Gotcha.
Andrea, did you get yours?
How you doing, my sir?
Right next to you.
There's Thomas. Man,
Chalmer.
this ain't a sandwich. Huh?
Do what you can do.
And I will take roll against, correct?
I'm not getting the Microsoft adapter now. Is it on?
Right. I'd like to call the meeting to order again with the new persons seated at the table with us. Have a roll call. Attendance. Okay.
Mr. Burris,
Here.
Mr. Kuhn,
Here.
Mr. Denise,
Here.
Mr. Brock,
Here.
Mr. Reed,
Here.
Ms. Vogt. Here. Ms. Lively.
Here.
Mr. Broderick,
Here.
Mr. Woodham. Here. Mr. Piercy.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you all. Welcome and congratulations on being duly elected to the city council. I hope that your time on the council will be enjoyable and that you will learn a lot about how things work in Monticello. So at this time, I am going to make mayoral appointments for the following offices. Planning and Zoning Board, Mike Hawkins, a 5-year term that expires in April 2028. Historic Preservation Commission, Maury Williamson, 3-year term expires April 2026. Ted Bachman, 3-year term expires April 2026. Fire and Police Commission, Barry Miller, 3-year term expires April 2026. City Clerk Jill Potts, 2-year term expires April 25. Monticello Fire and Rescue Department firefighter Ryan Kohler. And that's it. Do I have a motion to approve my appointments?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Most of these people are holdovers from the past, so can I have a roll call?
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Coon,
Yes.
Mr. Denise,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Ms. Foat,
Yes.
Ms. Lively,
Yes.
Mr. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Woodham,
Yes.
and Mr. Piercy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. At this time, I should have done it probably before she took that vote, but that's okay. Can I swear the city clerk in?
Yes.
I'm not going to swear at you.
Do you have
Swear it. Yeah. Raise your right hand, please. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly
that
swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the
and
United
the
States
Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and I will faithfully discharge the office of city clerk
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you for serving again. Okay.
The appointees will be sworn in at their first meeting they have after
Yeah,
tonight.
they don't do it here. They do it at their commission meetings. At this time, we're going to consider ordinance 2023-23, an ordinance amending Title 7, Chapter 78 of the City of Monticello Code of Ordinances to amend regulations governing non-highway vehicles and low-speed vehicles. Is this, okay, Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chapter 78 of Title 7 of the City Municipal Code Ordinances currently allows for the regulation of non-highway vehicles and low-speed vehicles, requiring owners of golf carts and UTVs to register with the police department for an annual permit and inspection of the proper and appropriate safety equipment in order to operate on local streets. There are 2 businesses locally that sell low-speed vehicles, but the current ordinance does not allow for the temporary permit, just like a car dealer has a temporary permit tag so you can test drive the vehicle. This is simply adding temporary permit to that language, again, of Chapter 78 of Title 7. So now I think there's just one sentence added that temporary plates can be used for the test driving of these particular vehicles. So it is recommended the City Council discuss and approve ordinance 2023-23 as presented at tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2023-23?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
If you have comments or questions, you may ask them now. Anyone? Hearing or seeing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Coon,
Yes.
Mr. Denise,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Ms. Foat,
Yes.
Ms. Lively,
Yes.
Mr. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Woodham,
Yes.
and Mr. Piercy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to present Dirk Price, who is going to speak to the council about city council roles and responsibilities. This is a discussion only event, and Attorney Price has been with the city for several years and traditionally gives this talk to help new members understand a little bit better what their responsibilities are as elected officials. So Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations to the newly elected. Also my condolences, but thank you for your service. I've I've lived in Illinois almost my whole life. Local government's been something I've been interested in. I served as an intern in Springfield for that reason, to learn about it. Illinois is often chastised for having too many units of local government, but it means local control. It goes all the way back to the Northwest Territory Act, when we decided to put more power into the hands of voters to keep more units of local government accountable to the local electorate. The 1970 Illinois Constitution put that in stone, and we're going to kind of start there at the 10,000 foot level and bring it down to where we are and what your roles are. So it begins, the constitutional structure really is within the Illinois Constitution, and I need to take you back to your 8th grade civics class. If you recall from your 8th grade civics class, when we learned about the Great Compromise that led to the federal government under the US Constitution, the states were reluctant to give up their power. And so the federal government only has the power enumerated in the Constitution given to the federal government. As you recall, the states reserved all other powers to themselves. Well, the state of Illinois turns around under its Constitution and says to all of you units of local government, same. We're keeping all the power, and you have only the power we give you by statute. The most common source then of your powers are in what's called the Illinois Municipal Code. And so we look to that as to your source of power. There are a number of other statutes that empower you. There are intergovernmental agreements where it's a game of electricity tag, where if anybody has the power and you're all touching each other, then you can all enjoy the power. But setting those aside largely, we have to go find a source of power for everything you do. Now on the screen, you see the terms home rule and non-home rule. That's because in the Illinois Constitution, a compromise was made, again, for bigger urban populations and smaller, or those who wanted to give their local government more power. A home rule unit of government, which by statute starts at 25,001 people in your certified population, you automatically become home rule, which you can turn back that power. And there are a number of municipalities in the state of Illinois who have given back their home rule powers by referendum and said we don't want them. And then there's non-home rule. Monticello is a non-home rule community. You don't have home rule powers. Home rule powers flip things on there. You get to act like the state of Illinois. You don't have to abide by your own ordinances. You can do all sorts of things unless the state has told you, no, we're not home rule, you're out of bounds here. This is where we draw the line. They don't have to find a source of power every time because they've got home rule power. But again, you are a non-home rule community. You must go in search of. And so just like what we just went through, you don't have the power to get outside of your statutory DNA. This is how you're constructed and built. It literally is your DNA. And while I would have loved to have been a professional hockey player, my DNA did not allow me that skill set. And so you just can't get outside of the DNA that created it. So it's Judge Dillon's rule is how it's known. You might see that in a memo that we prepare for Terry or that comes to you. Dillon's rule is that when there's a question of whether or not you have a power to do something, we have to go find the source of it. So it's not only in our Constitution, but it's in this famous case and famous axiom known as Judge Dillon's rule. We have to go find you a source of power. So let's talk about the branches of the government. The executive branch, which is the mayor, officially the chief executive officer of the city. An officer is a defined term, so that's a loaded term. It's responsible to see that the laws and ordinances are enforced, that employees perform their duties. Now, sometimes you'll hear of communities in Illinois that are known as strong mayoral forms. That is not you. In a strong mayor form, the mayor does all these things and Terry's job. But we're not a strong mayor form of government. You're an alderman council form of government. Access to all records. The mayor has some veto power. Authority to vote only in certain circumstances. There are 3 of them. Most notably, the one that comes up the most is when there's a tie. Sometimes if you're down to the bare minimum of a quorum, the ordinances need needs half the alderman plus 1 vote to pass an ordinance, and the mayor can vote there if only half the aldermen are in attendance. because half the aldermen plus the mayor is a quorum, and that's the other one where they get to vote. Sometimes there are things like annexations where super votes are required and the mayor can vote, but those are rare. And then the mayor presides at the meeting. He's the chair and rules on motions and order and keeps order of the meeting. You all, aldermen, are the legislative branch, obviously. You're the policy makers. You determine the rules of procedure for meetings that the mayor then administers. But these are highlighted for this reason. Your powers are collective. There is a form of government in Illinois known as the commission form of government, where individual members of the legislative body have power by themselves over certain sectors of government. There's a public works commission. There's a parks commissioner. There's a finance commissioner. That's not Monticello. You are, in general, the alderman and mayoral form of city council government, and none of you aldermen have any individual power. Zero. You don't have the power to set policy by yourself. You don't have the power to direct an employee to do a thing. You don't have a power to bind the city. You can get us in trouble, but you don't technically have the power to bind anybody to anything. Your powers are collective and collective only. It's why the Open Meetings Act exists and why the Public Access Bureau and the Public Access Counselor are, in my opinion, nuts about things about when you meet and how you talk to each other. Because your powers are collective, and as soon as you start to act collectively, you start to gather power and can affect the lives of the electorate. And so, bearing in mind that your powers are collective, they set rules around it so that it doesn't get abused. You also have access to records necessary to carry out your legislative duties. No alderperson ever has to file a FOIA to see a record. You can make a request through Terry and the records get provided. And we'll talk about how you relate to staff and how you do that in a minute. But you do have access to the records as a function of your office. You can't do your job without doing that. You have the power to approve employee wage changes, authority to create offices, and approval and consent of mayoral appointments. It's the same 8th grade civics of checks and balances. The mayor can veto something and you can override a veto with sufficient votes. So there are the checks and balances between the two branches. Then there's the administrative branch. As you recall from the federal government, although it's not mentioned in the United States Constitution, it's tucked under the executive branch. All the agencies are technically part of the executive branch. And in this, in the city of Monticello, it's a little different. It's an office, Terry's office is created by an ordinance that the council as an entirety passed. And then Terry's powers come from the powers you've given Terry and his office. The administration of the day-to-day function, except the police department, because that's governed by very special rules, is all through Terry. Oversight of the day-to-day, hiring and firing, typically he supervises the employees, and whatever other duties you assign. He is the point of contact for the public, and he's the point of contact through which almost everything you need to do with respect to how the city staff is functioning goes through Terry and then back through Terry to all of you. So that's true of our office, me and Dan as well. Any one of you gets the right to send us a question about, that you need the corporate counsel to answer, but our answer goes back to everyone. So one of you can send me a question, but the answer will be sent to all council members. And again, Terry is your primary point of contact. In other situations, and we've gotten away from this in everything from policing to your world, we've gotten away from sort of a militaristic worldview, but it is the chain of command. Terry and the staff report to all of you, so no one of you gets to make something a super priority that sucks up all of staff time. If council directs it to happen, and I've been here long enough in Monticello working with y'all to remember days when certain aldermen wanted certain pet projects pursued by staff at all costs and would lock down staff from doing their day-to-day functions. And we figured out how to govern collectively and the right way, and certain things the whole council approved and certain things they said, no, that's too far, we don't need to do that. And that's how it happens. If one of you wants staff to investigate something and bring that forward, you need to bring it here. Let the mayor know, get it on the agenda, talk it out. And if the will of the council is to specially direct staff, then that's how that happens. It's the will of the council, not the will of a council member. And that's how you interact with department heads, is through Terry. And I think you've already done the introduction of most of the heads to the.
The offer goes out tonight, and we'll try to get the new older persons in City Hall as soon as possible.
So questions and answers that way. And most importantly, it's Terry's job to coordinate staff to effectively deliver services. So if one of the, they say you only remember 2% of a presentation like this. So among the 2%, I want you to remember is collective action, and that Terry's the one that coordinates the staff resources to, and this is the part to remember, fulfill your mission. Everybody here has the best interests of the city of Monticello at heart, and delivering not just for their ward, but for the entire city. And you may disagree about how we achieve that mission, but with respect to how you deploy staff to achieve that mission, we have to vector our way collectively to it. It's a lot of baby steps. That's my 35 years of doing local government law. That's the secret to effective local government. Expect to do it by baby steps, be persistent, and you'll be successful. Trying to do paradigm shifts, giant changes all at once is rarely successful. Rarely is there a mandate at the local government level to completely do something that far afield. So focus on the mission. It's our best opportunity. And the one thing that sometimes happens at councils, and I haven't seen it here for many years, but what sometimes devolved into was the game of gotcha, where you came in, you'd done your homework, done prepared, and staff comes in not prepared on a particular issue because they didn't know it was one. And then we play the gotcha game. And it happens at big communities, it happens at small communities, and it may make a point for a particular evening, but in my 35 years of experience, does not result in the effective delivery of government services to the people you're hired to represent. You also interact not only with staff, but with boards and commissions that are appointed and that have a role to play. So the most famous one, of course, is the Planning and Zoning Commission here. And they actually have to do the planning. There's no authority in Illinois under any statute to do zoning and planning without doing a comprehensive plan. That is the prerequisite to having zoning powers. All right, Monticello did that decades ago. But now that has to be cared for, curated, and continually revised and looked at. So the Planning and Zoning Commission has a big role to play. And in fact, by ordinance, you've given that commission some power over you. If they don't approve a zoning petition for a variance, you have to override it by a 2/3 vote. In effect, you've given away some power that you otherwise would have. Could be a majority vote, but by ordinance, you've given the Planning and Zoning Board some additional power over how things happen here. So not only are you relating to staff, relating to the boards and commissions that report to you. Historic commission's another one that would sometimes lead to some discourse in the community. By and large, it's planning and zoning is the one you have to be cognizant of and what their roles are in reporting to you. You have rules of procedure. The mayor read them tonight before public comment. And having adopted them, you're supposed to do that. And so you should have them at the ready. Public comment is one of the areas around which you can build rules. You can have others, and I think Monticello does. Everybody defaults to Robert's Rules of Order, and I would tell you that that would be a waste of your time to learn Robert's Rules of Order in the parliamentary sense. Robert's Rules of Order has been created and cared for and amended for much larger bodies than even 10 aldermen in the city of Monticello. It's for lots of committees, lots of committee structures, and then lots of disparate input. Although that's the backstop, because that's by tradition really, The good news is that you've got an effective manner of working together. You have an experienced chair who knows how to run a meeting, and that's how the work of the public gets done. And to keep that in mind, you could do public comment sometimes for 3 hours and none of the public's business gets done. That's not effective. That's not good government. So while we do want to have public input and we have the opportunity, your rules say there's a limit. We also need to do the public's business every meeting. We have those meetings for a reason. And so we move forward and do that. So understand the rules of how you proceed together doing it. One quick note, there's a difference between a hearing and a meeting. Hearings, there's no 5-minute limit when their hearing is conducted. People get a due process right to be heard at a hearing. The number of hearings before you is kind of rare. Hearings happen more often in front of the Plan Commission, for example. There are some hearings, though, that have to come here. If you annex property by an annexation agreement, for example, there has to be a hearing on that agreement. And that comes to you, and hearings can be a little bit bigger, longer, and you have to do all that. Meetings, which are the agenda posted, you all go through Open Meetings Act training. Meetings are different, and the public comment, which is mandated by statute, can have all the rules built around it. Due process rights aren't informing the public comment, statutory sorts of rights. Due process rights, constitutional rights inform a hearing. So a little less discretion for all of you when you're in a hearing. Votes must be recorded in the minutes. Votes must be taken at an open meeting. There's no secret ballots. And when in doubt, and the mayor knows this, take a roll call vote instead of a voice vote. And there are many things that the law permits a voice vote on, but the ones that you can't vote by voice are anything that having to do with money. If you're spending money, it needs to be a roll call vote. If there's a supermajority required, should be a roll call vote. And ordinances which require, as I said, the half plus one, should be a roll call vote. The nice thing about the consent agenda is it's a roll call vote. So there are plenty of communities who put every blessed thing on the agenda in the consent agenda. And if there's something you really want to talk about, any one alderman can pull it off and you can talk about it as new business and then take it up that way. The idea of doing that is that we focus on what we really need to focus on. Routine things like minutes, paying the bills. Once in a while, there's a bill you don't understand or want to talk about, so you pull paying the bills off the consent agenda. That's all perfectly fine. But when in doubt, take a roll call vote and we move forward. And the consent agenda is a really useful tool to allow you to focus on the public's business that's most important to you. You know, it's a couple meetings a month, not a lot of time. And as my mom used to say, nothing good happens after 10 o'clock at night. What are you doing? Well, a long meeting usually doesn't lead to productive discussion anymore. So again, I recommend to you and commend to you the continued use of the consent agenda so that it allows you to focus on what is really important to any one of you to talk about with all of you for your collective action. 10 things to know about the Open Meetings Act. You all have to take the training at some point. Those of you who've been reelected don't have to do it again, but anybody who's newly elected to the position, they have to take the Open Meetings Act training, get the certificate, and file that with the clerk. The presumption is openness. The definition of meeting is key. It's a majority of a quorum. The law recognizes that you can't just do business, the public's business, and really think about the things that are important to your community twice a month. That's insane. And in the rare instance, the law recognizes that that's not real life. You will be interacting with people at McDonald's for coffee or at church or at Rotary or whatever it happens. You'll be interacting with people and there may be another council member there and it'll be an issue of city business. And as long as there's not a majority of a quorum there talking about this issue, that's fine. And you're allowed to talk to each other as long as it's not majority of a quorum. Because that's useful and important and helps each other to do the best job of governing. Well, what do you think about this? How do we move forward with this problem? What about this Plan Commission thing that's coming? You're allowed to talk about that. What they don't want is when you're going to start to assemble that collective power is it has to be done in the sunshine. No doing that in secret. So that's why there's an agenda, and that agenda has to say action items. It can't just say action after executive session, for example. We typically have to consult with Terry about what's the best way to word that, so that we're protected and you're protected from a complaint to the public access counselor. So let's talk about a few things that are involved in there. So first of all, you have electronic participation, you have a policy. The governor's order ends in a week. Okay, so no more Zoom meetings as a manner of conducting business. From now on, you have to have a quorum physically present here to do any business. And the only reason any of you can be away and participate electronically has to be the statutory reasons. Typically, you're away for work or your health is at issue. Now, you can use Zoom if you want as the electronic means of participation, but Zoom meetings like we had during the pandemic are over. There is no underlying health emergency, and so we need to have a physical quorum here. You need to tell the clerk why it is you're absent and that you would like to participate remotely. It has to be one of the statutory bases for it. Clerk will report that you're out on work or you're out for personal health reasons. And then there has to be a roll call vote to allow, and a roll call vote on each of you to allow each of you to participate. So if there's two of you phoning in or on Zoom, roll call vote has to be taken for each of you to do it. Now, we're all going to work together and do that, but I have been in meetings where they voted no on somebody to not allow them to participate, and that was a dysfunctional board and very spiteful. That happens, but that's what's required. So you need to have a quorum present from now on for meetings, and if you need one to phone in or want to Zoom in, whatever you choose, that's up to you. The vote has to be taken. That's the electronic participation portion of this. The annual schedule of meetings gets posted. Those are your regular meetings. If you have to shift one of those for any reason, it now becomes a special meeting. What's the difference? In a regular meeting, under alderman's reports, mayor's reports, new business, you can bring up anything to discuss it. You can't vote on it, you can't act on it, you can't take official action, but you can talk about anything that you want to talk about at a regular meeting within the confines of the mayor getting the public's business done. At a special meeting, it's only the exact things on the agenda that you're allowed to talk about and take action on. So that's the difference between a regular and a special. If you move a regular off of your adopted date for a special meeting, or if you call a special meeting, sometimes you have to do that. It's only what's on the agenda, nothing else. You're not allowed to bring up anything new. We go over the content of the agenda. Well, the good thing for y'all is that, Terry and Maura and the staff know what they're doing. They're pretty much a TV dinner. We warm them up and serve them. There's nothing to be cooked there. I want to talk now about electronic communications and your emails. So the city has email accounts for you, and that needs to become your best friend, because your email communications as elected officials are records of the city. And the Freedom of Information Act officer, when asked to provide records for anything, has to be able to swear that they did a diligent search of all of the city's records. And if they're hiding on your phone as a text or a personal email, then I have to come to you and ask to see all of your personal emails and all of your texts to make sure I got all the records. So we developed this habit. Again, you're going to run into people out in the community from all the different things that you're involved in who have your personal emails, and they may write to you at home and say, hey, I'm concerned about this issue, and send you a personal email to the personal email address they have for you that they know about. You must get in the habit of forwarding that to your City of Monticello email and answering from that, because that allows the FOIA officer to just search the city's email system to find those records. You don't have to ask you for your texts or your emails. There are a lot of cases, too many cases, where we have to get everybody's phones and check all their phone records because the public access counselor believes there were secret texts. In this community, there are people who are suspicious about how government works, and so we have gotten Public Access Bureau requests for things to check about for texts. And we've been able to get by with affidavits and all the rest, but let's not create the problem. Let's not put ourselves in that position. Your electronic communications need to be through your city dedicated email account. Now let's talk about a couple other things. There is an actual case where, Alderman writes to all the rest of you, all of you, writes 9 letters and a 10th one to the mayor and sends it out by the US Postal Service, and it goes out. And it says, this is what I think about this issue, and this is how I'm going to proceed. And then one of you gets that and writes back to all the other aldermen and the mayor in another letter through the US Post Office, and that goes out to everybody. And now there's this letter dialogue going on through the US Postal Service about an issue, and it's involving more than a majority of a quorum, and it's clearly about public business. And that is not a meeting because it is not contemporaneous. However, if the mayor starts calling up 4 of you and says, let's get on a conference call and talk about this police issue we have. Well, a teleconference call for that many people is clearly a meeting now, talking about public business, the business of the city, and you've got too many people on it because it's contemporaneous, it's instantaneous, it's there. Email, text, and social media are on that continuum somewhere between a teleconference call and the US Postal Service. The closer it is to SneakerNet, the less it's a meeting. And the closer it is to being a teleconference call, closer it is to a meeting. So what are the habits there to prevent that from happening? 1, abandon reply all. Good habit anyway. Any of you have ever caught by that? But abandon reply all. 2nd, if you're going to send something out to all your other council members, BCC them, because BCC, just them, and there is no opportunity for reply all on BCC. Or go through Terry, which is what we recommend. That's the safest way. Because then the concern gets to staff who can do some research that you might need for data. And then Terry can send it out to the rest of council. And then anybody who hits reply comes back to Terry. And then Terry disperses the communication. So it's a way of interrupting the contemporaneous nature of meetings. Ways places get caught is, and quite innocently, is you're on Facebook looking at somebody's post about an awesome event that just happened on the square, and you comment, and another one comments, and now we've got 4 commenters going on in time about public business. And there are people who complain about that. All you're doing is lauding the Boy Scouts for their excellent event down in the square, but 5 of you have done it, and glad we gave them a parade permit, and there are people who complain about that. There are also places where they've used the chat room to actually discuss things like a new subdivision or stormwater and done it on a Facebook chat room. That's a meeting going on in real time in a comment section. That'll get you in trouble. And so you got to be careful about social media as well. People piling in, creating a meeting because it's contemporaneous. Recordings, when you're in closed session, you have to cite the reason that you're going in. We're going to have, when we go into executive session, there are the bases for it. You got to try and stay on point. Mayor's good at it, about keeping people on point, because it's natural to sometimes wander off point, but you got to stay on point. It's got to be recorded, kept for 18 months, because that's the statute of limitations essentially for challenging it. Minutes are kept separately, kept confidential. One thing about closed sessions, it's a bit of a charmed circle. When you vote to go into closed session, you're saying to everybody else, yeah, I see how that this could be important to protect the city to be in closed session. Let's take about the low-hanging fruit. You're interested in buying some property for some reason. And you're trying to figure out how much authority you're going to give Terry, what price she'll go up to. You did that out here and said, well, Terry, go offer them, 12 an acre, but we can go up to 15. And you do that in public, and I'm the seller. Terry shows up in my office and it's 15, buddy. We're never going to start at 12, right? That's the taxpayer has lost because that's out in the open. That's why the exception exists. You can talk about the authority for acquiring land. That's one of the exceptions in Open Meetings Act law that you're allowed to talk about in closed session. So when you tell everybody that, Wes, I understand we're going into closed session and I vote to do it, and then you go talk about it out in the community, you violated the trust of all your fellow council members who can censure you. That's the remedy. Nobody goes to jail, But that's the political reality is you're the big person at McDonald's revealing secrets, but now you violated the trust of all your fellow elected members. You're not living up to your own word. And the fact is you put the city at risk. Those exceptions exist to protect the city as a body, a collective group. And so just encourage you that, as they used to say in World War II, loose lips sink ships and are not good for the city. So keep closed sessions closed. There comes a time when we have to reveal the minutes. You're not allowed to keep them closed forever. A review happens every 6 months. And you have to find a basis to keep them closed. So eventually all things will out. But for whatever period of time is needed to protect the city, you need to keep closed sessions closed. And again, public comment is mandated. We've talked about that already. So any gathering, the majority of a quorum for the purpose of discussing public business. And this one last thing is the purpose of discussing public business. All of you show up at the parade and all of you are in the parade grandstand or something, watching it go by, or you get on a float together, your city council. It's a gathering and there's clearly the number, but you're not there to talk about public business. You're there for a social event. It doesn't apply to social events. It doesn't apply to rallies. It doesn't apply to staff meetings. It doesn't apply if you go to the IML conference, to learn more about governing. If you go to IML in the fall, it doesn't apply there, even though you're all maybe even in the same session, learning about how to do budget work. But you're not talking specifically about the public business of Monticello at that time. It's more macro. So you can get together, you can be in the same place, you can even be at Rotary, talking about, and have a number there. And even if it comes up where the school superintendent gets up and starts to complain that doesn't think the land cash donation fees that you charge are high enough. Well, that's clearly a matter of public business and you've got a majority of a quorum there. As long as none of you comment or weigh in, we're not discussing public business. So we're not asking you to be hermits and go hide. We expect you to be in the community. The law just doesn't want you getting together collectively to start aggregating power and decision-making, except out in the open. Email, we've talked about the exchanges and reply to all, so use your city amount. You can't do business without a quorum, and sometimes that happens. People get caught by whatever it is. So what do? Particularly if the public has come to hear you or to talk about something. You don't want to show them that disrespect. The matter is, it's one of those days where people unexpectedly couldn't make it. So you can ask those to talk to you and share their thoughts and feelings, but you can't conduct any business and you really shouldn't have a meeting. You might not have a quorum, but if you have a majority of a quorum, you still have a meeting that has to recognize the Open Meetings Act. So just listen to those who come if that ever happens. It's been rare. It's been a long time since it happened here. So you already have your electronic participation policy, and that's fine. Again, the quorum now must be physically present. The agendas have to be available 48 hours before the meeting and continuously available during the entire 48-hour period. Post them on your website, you put them on the front door. It's got to put forth more than just the general subject, but what will be the subject of final action has to have some specificity. Where that line is, the Public Access Bureau and local units of government continue to push and pull on that. As to, if you think that you might discipline an employee, for example, you might. Well, one of the reasons you can go into closed session is to hear evidence about whether you should discipline an employee. So you go into closed session, you hear the evidence, and you decide not to. Wouldn't you feel terrible if you had as an agenda item, discipline Terry on an agenda item, and then you found out the evidence didn't support doing it? So now you have to explain why an agenda item says discipline Terry and you're not going to do it. So there's a push and pull, particularly after closed session, about what we're going to write down as the agenda item that might be done. So, authorize a public purchase of property, those kinds of things. There's some law that says I have to identify which piece of property. Well, if we didn't get there, I'm not going to give away the story yet. So it's a push and pull, but we'll figure that out. One thing I forgot to talk about on public comment, backing up a little bit. On public comment is the question always, and the hard question is, how much do each of you and the mayor engage the person who's there? Now, the reality is in 90% of the situations, the person who's come with public comment has prepared. They've done some research. They probably mined your website. They've done a little research in other communities, maybe even talked to one or two staff members. But by and large, they've prepared because public speaking doesn't come natural to most people. And second, they've got, they're going to be a squeaky wheel and they want to squeak with poise and dignity and be respected. So they're prepared and you aren't. You have not looked at this topic. You may have back of the hand, rule of thumb, 80% of the facts you need, and might even have strong feelings about what it is they're talking about, but you're not prepared because you haven't done the research, you haven't asked Terry for it, you haven't looked into the data. So often our advice is to simply thank the person for it, refer it to Terry and staff, and have a report back from Terry the next meeting about this item was addressed, here's the follow-up. That's take a meeting. We've worked with staff and have come up with an approach where, rarely are you opening a packet, pulling something out for the first time that we're asking you to take action on it here. Usually it's previewed for you, and then we're asking you to take action. Well, the public deserves the same treatment. The public's coming to you and asking you immediately to open a packet and give me a response, and it's not accurate, it's not good, it's not thorough. They deserve better respect. So it is refer it and bring it back and make sure you report on it at a following meeting, but don't really engage then unless you're certain. Terry and I talked about this part of, learning lessons and what's happened. And this is where having an experienced chair helps. Sometimes the chair understands what the answer is with good certainty and good knowledge and can say, hey, no, time out. You don't have to worry. You don't have to go down that road. This is the answer. And that's the chair's prerogative to do that. But by and large in public comment, you're not going to win. You're probably not going to persuade somebody whose big day is today to present to you. So don't try. Actually listen, find out, and then respond as a subsequent meeting. They have to be open and convenient to the public. Unfortunately, Monticello was a case that was about this. It was back in the days when we were trying to figure out all of our park system. And we had a meeting at a distant community, and that's okay if you provide a bus for people to get there. They don't have to travel on their own. Because it was a field trip to see if we wanted to do something like that. We didn't provide the bus. Complaint went to the Public Access Council, and they said it was too far away, should have provided transportation for any members of the public to leave from here and go to the meeting with you. And you also always have to have adequate space. This is in the right place. What happens if, a subdivision turns out in mass because they're angry? No pitchforks or torches, but they're all here in numbers and there's not enough room here. Technically, you're supposed to adjourn the meeting to a place that is big enough. And usually you can see that coming, and usually we move the meeting from here to someplace like the high school gymnasium or something, if that's coming. But if it happens where we're surprised and we don't have another place to go, have to adjourn the meeting until we find a bigger place to go, because you're not allowed to conduct a meeting where the public can't get in and can't observe what you're doing. That's rare, but it occasionally happens. Talked about public comment. These are all the rules about the PAC has, but again, between Terry and Maura, we are in good hands on that stuff. The mayor too understands the rules. We've talked about the rules to go into closed session. These are the most common topics. The purchase and sale of property. When it comes to the sale of property, it's only to set the price. Whether to sell a piece of city property, that has to be discussed out here, whether to do it. What to sell it for, again, the pricing thing, that you can talk about in the executive session. People often want to talk about whether we should sell public property in closed session. That you can't do. The discipline, hiring and firing, appointment of officers to fill vacancies, litigation, if it's pending or about to be filed. The Public Access Bureau is very particular about what imminent means, so it's got to be a real threat. not generally something, I'm going to get my lawyer. That's not enough anymore. And now too frequent and too common anyway. And then there's every 6 months, you can review the closed session minutes in there and talk about those there, and then go on from there. For example, citing, we're going to go in to talk about personnel. Now, you have to talk about specific personnel. So the citation is, 2C1 to talk about the discipline or employment of specific personnel. And then when you're in there, you can't talk about personnel in a budgetary sense. That's a no-no. You have to talk about specific personnel, like what's Terry's raise going to be, or that kind of thing. Discussion of budget issues, even in connection with a particular employee or employees, unless it's collective bargaining or a class of employees, like all, certain level of public works people, unless it's about a class, you can't just go in to talk about personnel generally. Freedom of Information Act, the key here is don't create problems. Make sure that you share records through your portals so that our FOIA officers are in good shape. And one of the things we need to do always together is invest in the website, because the more stuff we put on the website, the easier it is for the FOIA officer to say, just look at the website. So if there's stuff that you think the community is interested in knowing about, instead of leaving them to tell them to go FOIA the records, it's the kind of thing where if you work with Terry, we can get information up on the website and everybody can share it. So that's a useful shortcut that saves staff time and still gets the information to the people who want it. There's a new cybersecurity training requirements flown under the radar, but it's a brand new law. It's effective January 1. The state, typical state of Illinois, was supposed to give us modules for training everybody in January. They released them last week. So now the training modules are out there. Everybody, every employee, even employees who never touch a computer, don't even know where the on switch is, every employee of the city of Monticello has to take the cybersecurity training. They have to sign an affidavit and they have to file it with Terry. It's available online. It's a module. And the recommendation from the Attorney General is that every elected official do it too. And that's because cybersecurity is a real thing. And I'll give you some real life examples. So because your agendas are published and available to the public, for example, if you're paying a contractor for doing work and it's a $200,000 thing, then see the contractor's invoice, it might be support your council packet. People have taken those invoices, cobbled together a different invoice and sent it in and said, hey, I see I'm on the agenda. They make it look like it's coming from the contractor's email. I see we're on the agenda for payment. If we're paid, would you do me a favor, instead of a check this month, would you wire me the money? Here are the wire instructions. And then the contractor has come in and said, I'm here to pick up my check. What do you mean your check? You told us to wire you the money. Oh, that's not my email address. It says Joe Contracting, but it says from some place in the Caribbean, not from any US.com website. How come you didn't notice that? Well, that's what cybersecurity training does, is it teaches you to look for the fraud. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have gone from public treasuries to the Cayman Islands and to Russia for these kinds of fraudulent things where people cobble together publicly available invoices to redirect public funds. So it's become a big enough problem, millions of dollars, that we now require cybersecurity training for everybody. So yeah, everybody is going to need to do that. And it doesn't take that long. It's useful actually in your own private life too, because you get emails like, hey, I've got an emergency. Can you pick up a couple of Amazon gift cards for a present I need to give? That's not really anybody looking for that. So that concludes my sort of brief introductory boot camp for welcome to being a city council member. Questions? I'm happy to field. Or Dan, help me field them.
Your cybersecurity thing, is that the know before?
No, it's a special module the state has developed exactly.
Okay.
Know before is good. I recommend
We've
it.
been getting at the courthouse quite a bit with know before, and we delete them all because we've not been told to take them.
So,
Sorry.
yeah, but the state has,
That's what I'm talking about.
the state has a module that you're required to sign up and say you watch the state's module.
Okay.
So
Let's have it come.
You'll get it. Okay, good time. I know.
I don't know if it was no before or something different.
That would be logical, useful.
That's all. Oh, yeah.
State has their own modules for several things, and they're always interesting. In a couple of cases, the Illinois Municipal League and the Illinois Local Government Law Association, ILGL, we've had to call them and say, that isn't exactly the law. Here's your opinion. Oh, let me change the module. So, but these are other questions. All right, well then, Dan, will you pass out the quiz and we'll take a test and see how people have done?
Oh,
No.
Yeah. Wendy's not going to let me ask anybody any quiz questions, so.
I have this.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Appreciate it. I haven't heard that for a while. I don't know how I managed to miss it.
What's that?
Your presentation.
Oh, well, I did it, 2 years ago, right?
That could be.
I'm just disappointed. I told the mayor I'm disappointed every other time I'm here. It's for Callie's boot camp and she brings a baker and it's always treats. Oh, no treats now. Well, slipping. Standards are slipping.
Okay, thanks a lot. We'll move on to alderpersons' reports. I don't think we'll have many this evening. Mike?
Last weekend was really one of those feel-good days to be in Monticello with a lot of stuff going on in the square. The city, the service for cleanup days was just, shouldn't take it for granted because that's a huge service. I got in under the wire right before 4:00 on Sunday, but to have that, we really appreciate that. And we had a great day for all the stuff that was going on in the square. So it was a good day.
You? Eric? Wendell?
Only to welcome the new members to the table. Dirk's advice is spot on. He hasn't made too many mistakes in his illustrious career. You bought a new boat yet? You got a new boat yet?
What's that?
You got a new boat yet? He's a great boater.
I do have a bunch.
Oh, pictures are later. But welcome to you all. What he spoke to about the assistance that's available to you, please utilize that. Maura, Terry, Jill, and the mayor are your best sources. Go to them. Don't throw things out. If you have questions, his shoulders are drooping a little bit because we've added some weight to him tonight. He is the guy that will get you answers. So if you have something going on, don't hesitate to call him and say, hey, I got a question about this. He will respond to you. But again, welcome to you all. Hope you're regular attendees. I got a couple more years in the seat, but the way it looks now, probably going to cash in 25. So if you're out and around and you have somebody else that you think wants to dance with you in Ward 3, tell them to come to some meetings, to listen to what's going on, to get involved in what the city's doing. And you might have a new person out there with you in a couple of years. So we'll see. That's all I got.
Good, thank you.
Welcome to the new people.
thank you, Brad.
Mary?
Likewise, Wendell, it was like you just took the words right out of my mouth.
That's unusual to do for Mary, believe me.
Tom? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, but what I do want to add is I feel like I've been on council for just over 3 years, and what I appreciate about the group is we can be here, represent the city of Monticello, bring our thoughts to the table, and walk out and still have a cohesive group who works together. So I'm looking forward to all of you joining us in serving the city of Monticello.
Absolutely.
That's nice.
Tom?
Mike touched on it. Cleanup days are great. I'm so appreciative that the city does that. It is a great opportunity to get rid of.
Fine.
Nothing tonight.
Ron? Nope. I don't blame you. I wouldn't either. Just remember, if you have a question, ask someone. That's the most important thing you can do. You get your council packets usually the Wednesday before the council meeting on Monday. That gives you a little time to look at it and see if there are things that you would like to ask about. Please make people responsible to you and ask the questions. They'll give you any kind of information they can. So with that in mind, police chief's report.
We do have the monthly list. All of our numbers went up from last month to this month, except for a couple categories. Some of the criminal offenses, a lot have involved some juveniles. So I do want to give kudos to the school staff. It's nice having that relationship with the school administration, the school staff. It's made my job a lot easier. I know it's easy for me too, living in the same house as a school resource officer. That has helped my caseload out quite a bit and got me some info that normally I wouldn't have. We do have applications that are due Friday, so if you know anyone that wants to just have a blast being a cop, by all means, send them our way. We do have our drug take back. We collected over 121 pounds for a few months. We deposited that back. The only problem we're having is we're having a lot of people drop off syringes. They're at the pharmacy location. I don't mind if I get poked. I have a problem if my staff and my secretaries get poked. We're going to try one more thing of putting a Velcro sign over the box lid to where you have to remove the Velcro and it'll say no syringes in big letters. There's no excuse for it. Hopefully that will cut down on the syringes that we start getting. Hopefully it's down to 0 next month when we collect it. We do have some training coming up here in the next month or two. One's a weather planning class at Ilias and Urbana, and then Officer Foreman is taking the field training officer. I believe it's the first week in June. We did, on the fun part of the job, we did have the school touch a truck for the second grade students last Wednesday. That was an absolute blast. I think they had, what do you think, John, about 125, 150 kids out there?
It's a big class.
Yeah.
A lot of kids.
Huge class. Actually got the helicopter to come for the third time in about, 10 years?
Yeah.
That was an absolute blast. So just nice to have the kids out there. The fire department was there. Kirby Hospital flight for air medic. And then ourselves and the sheriff's office were out there. And then finally, we do have a firing range here in town. I've worked with city staff, Carlos Brett with Public Works, just to kind of see where our lot lines are. We've had a few instances of people being out for fire, and then there is the 4-H trail that kind of goes back there. People popping up out of nowhere and walking right as people are shooting. So I walked around there, put some marker tape, and then now that we have an idea where our lines are, putting some better signage out there just to mitigate any risk that we have.
Any questions of Chief?
I was just gonna say, having a second grader, you guys were a pretty big hit last week, so.
I'm sorry.
Said having a second grader, you guys were a huge hit last week. That's all she could talk about.
That's fun.
She got put on a gurney and loaded in the back of the. She was so excited.
Fire Chief Rupke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For some of you who don't know me, I'm John Rupke. I'm the fire chief, and I've been fire chief for about 4 years. 4 years. Seems like forever.
40?
What's that?
40?
Am I what? 40? Yeah, 40. If you don't know, the Monticello Fire Department's an all-volunteer fire department. We now have 19 members, wonderful men and women who volunteer their time. We meet at a minimum 3 Thursdays each month and do training. I can go over that in a bit. We are budgeted to have 22 members. And I appeal to you. I think it's a lot more fun to be a firefighter than a cop.
It is, right now.
If any of you guys know anybody who wants to be a firefighter, please have them contact me or the city of Monticello or the Facebook page. And we'd love to have some more members. Like I said, we train. And congratulations to all the members, new members of the council. We do train three nights a week during the month. The first week we did situational calls, vehicle placement, scene size up. It's key when you pull up to a fire scene, where to place your vehicle, what you report when you're coming into a fire scene, so that all departments, mutual aid, police, ambulance, all know what's going on when you get there. So we practice that quite often. Second week, we did building maintenance over at the firehouse. We did RIT training. RIT is rapid intervention training, where if a firefighter goes down, we have a secondary team that would go in and help with the rescue of the firefighter. Third week, we do equipment maintenance on a third night. And we did air bottle filling. When we go into a hostile environment with a fire, we do wear an air pack and a bottle. We have to learn how to kind of refill those as we go. Throughout the month, we do a lot of different activities, and I listed some of them we did. We attended training with the Pike County Dispatch on their new priority dispatching. The county is adopting what's called priority dispatching. It's a more robust dispatching system. So I know that you're on it already, right? Because we're getting into July, I think. When they dispatch us, there should be a lot more information. So when we're going into a scene, they will get a lot more information and relay it to us. And there's different ways of doing it, but I think before they were just kind of flying by the seat of what they did, and now they really have a structured way of gathering information and dispatching to us. Also, this month, we had 7 members of our fire department graduate from EMR class, emergency medical responder. It's an 80-hour class, 40 hours in class, 40 hours of homework and hands-on training. And those members are Lieutenant Michael Barnes, firefighter Austin Wiggins, firefighter Amanda Weiss, firefighter Colton Williams, firefighter Nick Andruzak, firefighter Caleb Skinner, and firefighter Pat Powles. We have 19 members of our fire department. 15 are medically trained, either EMRs or EMTs. The EMR is one step below an EMT. As you can see from my report, we run between 70 and 80% medical calls. So to have most of our members medically trained is really a plus for our department and for the city's residents of Monticello. We also had 8 members of our department go to FDIC, which is the Fire Department Instructors Conference in Indianapolis. We spent the day speaking with vendors about different items within the fire service, new technology, and spent time doing that. We haven't seen anything real expensive, Terry, so don't worry about that.
I'm starting to worry.
You're starting to worry. So, and we ran 31 calls last month, which was pretty low for the month, for our months. We're tracking at about 157 for the first 4 months. We run about 150 or 450 calls a year. And so that's about it. If anybody has any questions for the fire department, I'd be glad to answer them now, or if you want to meet with me later or want to tour the firehouse, I'd be happy to take you over there. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone have anything for John? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. City Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things real quick. Obviously, piggyback on most everybody else. Welcome to the new folks on the city council. Kind of an exciting time to have half a new council. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you alongside the more seasoned individuals might be thinking about calling it quits. And want to extend to everybody. I would like to meet with you kind of on a one-on-one basis and introduce you to city staff. Ryan, you and I are like 2 ships at night, but we're at the point probably in the summertime. Yeah. Just to see City Hall, meet staff. Dirk hinted to it, as well as council staff. We have at your disposal a lot of professional, highly educated, highly motivated staff. And don't be fooled. There's no way I could do my job without the folks that work there at City Hall and Public Works, police and fire departments. It truly is a lot. It's a team effort from top to bottom. So I'll probably email each of you there with your new city email addresses, just trying to figure out a time, a date and time that work for you. We'll make it work on our end. And then real quick, the cleanup days, I wrote that down. Every year that is an orchestrated chaos. This year was the first year with the new waste hauler. So Friday morning, Public Works Director Brett Baker and I were on the phone to several individuals at Republic Services. And some of the hiccups were resolved in very, very, very short order. The rest of the day, Friday went smooth, Saturday smooth, and Sunday smooth. So I will say the orchestrated chaos, Republic, and of course, Public Works guys did a phenomenal job out there. Friday afternoon, I think there were 4, maybe 5 Public Works guys, Monticello Township. Kudos to them. They usually have at least 1 or 2 personnel out there as well. So, and I think it was a historic weekend. I think there was a lot of stuff brought by this weekend. So keeps the town clean. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, don't do it. Okay?
If you're new, don't leave yet.